CNBC-TV18.
Well, hello and welcome to Newscentre. I'm Ashmit Kumar. The big corporate story that we're tracking: Air India has signed deals with Boeing and Airbus to buy 470 aircraft worth $70 billion. This is the largest order in aviation history and Air India's first since 2005. Madeeha Mujawar now joins us to explain how this large deal can change the aviation landscape. Madeeha.
Air India's order suggests how the Indian aviation landscape is moving for better times. Air passenger traffic is surging despite soaring airfares, so there's a huge travel demand and therefore an opportunity for airlines to expand. Let's talk about where Air India as a group stands currently. Its market share in the domestic traffic stands at 26%, while Indigo controls a huge chunk of 54.9%. So clearly, Air India has a huge scope to expand in the domestic market. Now let's see where Air India stands in overseas travel. There are many routes where Air India has a marginal presence and has a huge scope to expand given the rising traffic to these regions. I'm talking about many of the US and European destinations, Middle East, South Asia, Southeast Asia and South African countries. To expand its operations on these routes, Air India will have to compete with Emirates, Etihad, Qatar Airways, Turkish Airlines and Singapore Airlines, among others. Now, these airlines offer long-distance, one-stop connectivity to Indian travelers, so a clear opportunity to tap the traffic for Air India. Now, to undertake such expansion, Air India will need more aircraft, and that's where the new order comes into the picture. It has 220 aircraft in its existing fleet. Of the 470 new aircraft order, 31 will arrive by the end of this year, and some 36 leased aircraft will take its fleet to 287 planes in the short term. That's close to Indigo's over 300 aircraft. Now, in the long term, upon completion of deliveries, Air India will have 726 aircraft, while Indigo will have around 800 after it receives around 500 that were ordered earlier. But Air India will still have an edge over Indigo with around 120 wide-body planes. Now, separately, Air India's order has brought business to 3 engine makers: Rolls-Royce, GE Aerospace and CFM International. Pratt & Whitney, which is facing issues with its Neo engines, has not received a single engine order from Air India. So that's where things stand as of now. We continue to watch the aviation space closely for exciting and interesting developments ahead. That's the big story there in the aviation landscape. Let's move forward now. Government sources tell us that the centre has pegged RBI dividend at a conservative 30,000 crore rupees for this next fiscal. Now, the source adds that the government is confident of meeting FY23 fiscal deficit targets, even if divestment receipts fall short of the revised estimates of 50,000 crores. Sapna Das joins us now with more details. Sapna.
Well, the RBI dividend estimate for FY24 is seeing close to around 30,000 crores. However, sources tell us that, the estimation as of now is conservative, which probably indicates that the government expects to top that number sometime next financial year. Having said that, also in terms of the fiscal deficit aim for the current financial year, the government is very confident of sticking to the number, even if the uncertainty on disinvestment receipts continues. That uncertainty stems from the fact that we're not very sure whether the ZL OFS will actually go through, it will sail through. So given that, there could be some slippage in the divestment receipts. However, government is very confident that even in that eventuality, the every target for the current financial year will be met. Last but not the least, also the harvest production, the production numbers of food grains have just come out very recently. It's supposed to be a bumper harvest on wheat again. Here the government is very confident that this will help cool off wheat prices, which have been soaring to all-time highs almost during the entire year. And over the next 2 to 3 odd months, they also expect this to have a positive impact on food inflation. They expect that to moderate over the next 2 to 3 odd months.
Right, Sapna, thanks a lot for that. Now, government sources have told CNBC-TV18 that the trade surplus for services is at its highest level, with exports in the sector growing at 30% as of now. Now, sources also say that all ministries have been told to identify imports of non-essential goods and present data accordingly. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman continues to meet with industry leaders after the budget. Today, she was at the industry body PhD Chamber of Commerce as well as ASSOCHAM. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman remained non-committal when asked about further reduction in export duties. She also added that the government is keeping a close watch on imports and warned that even a 3-month rise in imports could hurt India for the full year.
The way in which I have spent this year's preparation and also the last year's preparation for the budget has been to go item wise on customs duty. That is why we were able to bring it down in about 18-20 categories, and we very clearly said we will keep that momentum and we'll follow that process of where it is possible to reduce without hurting an Indian industry which needs it. We will bring it down. At the same time, keep a very close watch on flooding or surge in any kind of imported goods. The surge sometimes hurt us. Even if the surge was only for 3 months, it can hurt us for a whole year.
Meanwhile, the union government expects record high wheat and rice harvest in the current crop season. According to the Agriculture Ministry's second advance estimates, wheat production may touch 112 million tons this year. Meanwhile, rice production is expected to be more than 130 million tons, while surplus food grain should keep prices in check. Food Secretary Sanjeev Chopra told CNBC-TV18 that government's policies will also aid in reducing wheat prices. He added that export restrictions on non-basmati rice will be reviewed in due course.
The procurements would happen start from the 1st of April. So as of now, you must have seen the second advance estimates which have come from the Agriculture Ministry. The production is expected to be quite good, and we are expecting more than about 112 to 113 million tons of production. So that gives us a lot of cause for cheer that production is going to be good. With regard to procurement, that starts on the 1st of April. And the wheat prices have come down. You are aware of the decision of the central government of selling about 30 lakh tons in the open market. This was done on 25th of January. Since then, prices have come down and they are ruling now less than 2,500 rupees. And we are hopeful that with the policy decision that the government will take and is taking, the prices will come down further in the coming few days.
India is looked at in a positive light internationally as far as rice exports are concerned. What's the current situation on rice? And also, is there a possibility in near future of the export limit being increased for sugar as well as rice?
Rice exports, the basmati rice exports, of course, there is no issue. With regard to the non-basmati, there was restriction imposed last year. So government will review the situation as and when we are finding that the production figures and the procurement figures are in line with any kind of a review of the decision, which we would take in due course. With regard to sugar production, we are getting figures that it will be slightly less than what we had last year. And besides the 60 lakh tons of exports that were allowed in November last year, we would take a call on whether any further exports would be allowed or not once we have a very firm indication of the production figures.
Well, Volvo is betting big on India's EV drive. In an exclusive conversation with my colleague Parikshit Luthra, top executive said that battery electric vehicles are Volvo's strongest weapon in the country against premium brands. They added that India could be the fastest growing market in Asia Pacific in 2023. Take a look.
We plan to grow by developing in particular our electric vehicle portfolio here. So we think there's a very strong and growing demand for pure EVs. So we launched our XC40 BEV here last year, which was extremely well received by the press and by consumers. And we'll continue to introduce more BEVs over the coming years here. And I think that will be the backbone of the growth in India.
Right. We also believe that Volvo is considering launching an entry-level electric car to have a greater footprint in the EV space. Would that be right?
We have said that we're going to introduce a new battery electric vehicle every year for the next several years. We've also confirmed that we will introduce a smaller battery electric vehicle, and that is slotted to arrive here in India in due course. Can't confirm exactly when, but in due course you can expect a smaller car than the current XC40 BEV.
And if I were to ask you about what kind of sales and production numbers are you looking from India as far as your global demand and your global production outlook goes, how much do you expect will come from India? What could be the incremental sales over 2022?
See, again, I think I think we have to look at 23 versus 22 is a difficult number, but as Nick said, I think our focus is on electrification. We want to grow numbers through electrified cars, fully electric battery cars. So that's our focus. We want to gain as much as we can. What I can say is that XC40, when it came 2 months of last year, we sold like from within our portfolio 17% were electric cars. This year it should be better than that, much better than that is all I can say.
Right. Now, in terms of the global chip shortage, how does it continue to impact your production? Would you say that for Volvo, the chip shortage, the semiconductor crisis is well behind?
No, I wouldn't say that. I think the semiconductor issue is still with us. We hope that it will get better this year. It has eased a little bit, but with the war in Ukraine rolling on, unfortunately, it's very hard to predict when we'll be back to normal supply and demand for semiconductors. We do our best, and frankly, we could have sold many more cars here in India had we had more production. So it continues to be a bit of a challenge for us.
Right. Now, in terms of your expansion plans, there have been talks about Volvo considering setting up a new plant in India. What stage are those talks currently? Are you scouting for a location? Are you looking at possibilities? Because different state governments have also asked Volvo to come and set up shop in India. So what is the status of those plans?
Well, I should say we already have a plant here in Bangalore. So we have CKD production of XC40 BEV, and I can confirm today that we will start production of our C40 BEV here later this year in that plant. In terms of more production capacity, we're looking at all options around the Asia-Pacific region. Nothing has been decided, and frankly, I don't know where we'll end up with that, but we're certainly well aware of the incentives and the desire of the Indian government to have more production here.
But that will be specifically for EVs?
I think pretty much all of our new plants will be specifically for EVs, yes.
If I were to ask you, Jyoti, about investments going into India, new investments, could you give us a figure on what would you like to invest in India in 2023?
See, I won't put, again, it's not about investment per se, but how we are expanding our footprint over the last few years. We set up our spare parts warehouse very recently. We have last year started our CKD production of XC40, and as you just heard from Nick, confirming that C40 will also be produced here. And we have also set up a India Tech Hub in Bangalore, which is, I think, bringing Indian talent in IT and I think developing softwares and apps and other things as we are moving towards that sort of smart cars. And a lot of this will be happening in India. So we have a big thing coming up in Bangalore, already started. Right. So that's how we're going to expand here.
Right. If I were to ask you about your key global markets, how does India compare to them, and how much of your global sales will come from India?
That's very hard to say because our global sales picture is changing all the time. What I can say is that we see India as a very important developing market. We see the population growing, we see the wealth of the middle class is growing very rapidly indeed. So for us, this is a very important growth market. Where it will rank in the global hierarchy, it's very hard to say because there's so much turmoil in automotive markets all around the world. But we've got a lot of focus on India.
Well, with that, we're heading into a very short break, but coming up on the other side, an exclusive conversation with UAE's Foreign Trade Minister when we come back.
Friends, I want to share some good news with all of you. Firstly, like always, we have performed very well this time also.
But what will we get?
Secondly, we shall invest in employee benefit.
Come on, now tell us what will we get?
And thirdly, we shall invest in LIC's group funded plans.
Great, we'll get everything!
Now, leave encashment,
Gratuity,
and along with pension, our future is secure.
Yes, employees' real benefit lies in LIC pension and group scheme.
Pull up the flicks and I take it on beer. Pull up the hands and I feel no beer. I dig a don. I sick a don. Take it on the roll and the show and the pull out the face setter, pull out.
Hello, Goosebumps, the new Volkswagen Virtus.
घर में फैमिली की डिमांड्स और ऑफिस में काम की इन्वेस्टमेंट करने के लिए टाइम कहाँ मिलता है? मिलता है क्योंकि मेरे पीछे SMC है। SMC, money wise, be wise.
Investment in securities market are subject to market risks. Read all the related documents carefully before investing.
अपने घर और कमर्शियल स्पेसेस को बनाइए अल्ट्रा मॉडर्न, इनोवेटिव, इको फ्रेंडली विद क्विक इंस्टॉलेशन. All this at the one-stop destination. Europatik.
MCX presents a new cotton futures contract, now available for trading. Refer to circular on mcxindia.com for more details.
पढ़ता है, खेलता है, झूलता, उछलता है, दौड़ता, कभी कभी दौड़ कराता है, आगे आगे बढ़ता है इंडिया, अमूल दूध पीता है इंडिया.
हमें ये एहसास है कि कुछ लोग हमें क्या समझते हैं. इस कॉलेज का सबसे अहम अंग्रेजी शब्द टॉपर किसके पास? एक बात याद रखना, तुम्हारी पहचान सिर्फ तुम लिख सकते हो. बाकी सबके लिए तो पापा ने प्लान कर ही लिया है.
अपनों को इंश्योर करने के साथ उन्हें अपनी पहचान की ताकत का एहसास दिलाएं. HDFC लाइफ, सर उठा के जियो.
How about listening to global market maestros before crafting your investment strategy? How about getting deep insights into their businesses from top Indian honchos before putting your money on the line? How about making every trading day profitable with strategies from the market masters, macro pundits and chart wizards? Only one show gives you a head start to your trading day. Get ready to profit. Get ready for business with Bajar at these times on CNBC-TV18 and CNBC-TV18.com.
Bertram, meet Hector, the car that pampers me.
Pampers you, sir? Only a car.
Hello, MG. Good morning.
Good morning. What a beautiful day.
This is my favorite. Traffic jam assist. Ta-da!
Sir, please.
Relax. Hector's got this. Told you, it pampers me.
The next gen MG Hector. It's a human thing.
स्मिता, आओ, बेसो बेसो.
स्कार्फ में भी पहचान लिया?
हाँ, बोलो. आज बैंक कैसे? मनी ट्रांसफर?
कर दी, ऐप से.
तो FT?
ऐप से.
चेकबुक चाहिए होगी नहीं, है ना?
मेरी शादी है. ऐप में आप नहीं हो ना, इसीलिए खुद कार्ड देने चली आई.
बहुत सरस है.
रिश्ता आपसे है, सिर्फ ऐप से नहीं. फेडरल बैंक, योर परफेक्ट बैंकिंग पार्टनर.
With us right now is Minister of State for Foreign Trade, Ministry of Economy of the UAE, Dr. Thani bin Ahmed Al Zayodi. Dr. Thani, thank you very much for joining us. Let me begin by asking you about the impact of CEPA on trade volumes between the two countries since the time the CEPA was finalized. What has been the increase in trade volumes that you've seen?
Well, first of all, it's really a pleasure to be part of this interview, speaking about one of the most strategic initiatives that we signed with India last year. The impact was excellent. We're still doing the analysis, but there was a growth in our bilateral trade volume for non-oil commodities. We reached or we exceeded $49 billion with a growth of 10% in comparison to the year before. The distinguished thing that there was a huge growth as well from the Indian exports to the UAE by 26%, which means there is a huge potential to take this relation forward. We're celebrating the anniversary in a few days from now on the signing, and we're going to do the full analysis of the agreements by May 1st after completing one full year of the full implementation of the agreement.
Right. I'd like to ask you about the negotiations on the trade deal between India and the Gulf Cooperation Council. Do you think a larger agreement between India and the GCC is now within reach?
Well, it's the process has just been kicked off. The basis is going to be the CEPA between UAE and India to be taken into consideration. The discussion between the technical teams from both sides are happening, and we hope that things will be kicked off soon, inshallah.
Right. Also to ask you about the kind of growth and trade volumes you're expecting with India as a result of the CEPA by the end of 2023.
Well, the expectation in the overall until 2030 from now, but our ultimate goal is to reach $100 billion for non-oil trade between both nations. I'm sure this year is going to be very distinguished because usually in any trade agreements, the first few months are a trial, the testing the systems, trying to improve the efficiency here and there. And this year is going to have more and a high growth in comparison to last year. Since we're having this 10% growth, I'm sure we're going to exceed the 10% growth even this year, inshallah.
Right. Could you also give us a sense of how CEPA is opening up the movement of professionals from India to the UAE? How many salaried professionals, high net worth individuals have moved to the UAE since the start of the CEPA? What kind of growth do you expect in work visas, golden visas, and permanent citizenships for Indian nationals?
Well, let me clarify something here. CEPA will not force millionaires and billionaires to move from one place to the other. It was going to open business opportunities to many of them. Since CEPA has been focusing on highly talented people and the creation of highly skilled jobs, with the expectation that it's going to create more than 1 million jobs in India and more than 140,000 highly skilled jobs here in the UAE. When it comes to golden visa and the movements of millionaires, it has been associated with the other policy changes and laws modifications that we did in the country. So we usually calculate and sum up all the numbers from all over the world. Last year was very distinguished. We had more than 4,000 wealthy people move to the country, including the ones from India.
Are you expecting investments to flow from UAE to India? Would you be announcing new investments into Indian private sector, into Indian government programs this year?
Well, a few years ago, His Highness the President, Sheikh Mohammed Zayed, announced a big fund dedicated to the infrastructure investments in India. We're progressing on the implementations. India is booming, and many of the movements of low income to mid-income categories, we're talking about 250 million population moving to the city area, which means that there are so many developments and constructions and associated services with that movement, which means that there is a huge potential of investments for our sovereign wealth and companies. I just came back from Uttar Pradesh a few days ago, where we participated as partner country with a huge delegation from our side, looking at business opportunities at the state. So yes, there are many opportunities that we're exploring and working on. A few things which has been announced in the last few months on the food security, but we're going to continue exploring many of the investments in the Indian markets. The potential are huge. And we always look at the Indian market as one of the targeted top when it comes to our priority markets.
Right. Dr. Thani, I'd like to ask you about the Adani Group. We believe that the Adani Group of India has reached out to Abu Dhabi Investment Authority for a $1 to $1.5 billion investment. Could you confirm that these negotiations are on currently?
Well, this is a pure business-to-business discussion. We, as the government, has nothing to do with it. So this question will be dealt directly with the relevant authority.
Right. At the same time, we would like to ask you about the investments that UAE entities have made into the Adani Group. Currently, there are controversies around the valuation of the company because of the Hindenburg report. Abu Dhabi's IHC has plans to invest $381 million in the Adani Group. Is the UAE government reviewing its investments, partnerships with the Adani Group?
Well, again, this is a business-to-business discussion, and we at the government has nothing to do. We, the governments, and even the Indian governments, we set the scene, we open the doors, we ensure that the policy, the engagements, the agreements between governments are there to encourage our business people to discuss with each other and partner, work together. So this question will be answered directly by the IHC, the relevant company, on this, and they will be in a position to clarify the situation.
Right. My final two questions. Is there a possibility of India and UAE forming certain strategic alliances or technology partnerships this year? Is there any such deals that you are pursuing with the Indian government?
There's so many discussions are happening in all levels. What we are asking here is to expedite the discussion between both parties so we can announce it at the right time. But for sure, as India, as the host of G20 this year, and the UAE as the host of the COP28, there's so many discussions in the technology aspects and the relevant sectors that are an interest for both nations.
Right. My final question, what about sale of defense products, defense trade, joint production? Are there talks going on between India and UAE on that front?
Well, my work is not linked to the defense. I'm handling non-oil trade businesses. The defense matters is handled directly by our Ministry of Defense. There are some discussion and talks directly between the relevant authorities, but it's outside the scope of my work.
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Thani, for joining us here on the program on Newscentre, giving us your view of the trade partnership and how the CEPA could give a boost to the trade relationship between India and the UAE. Thanks once again for being with us.
Thank you.